Hi there, there's my little tutorial on multicam editing in Final Cut. I'll keep it brief and to the point. There are a million little teeny things that can change or go wrong, but I'm just going to show you how I approach these edits and how to set them up. So the first thing is you have to set them up before you do any editing. Once you have anything in a timeline, it's too late. These clips have to be put in place and all that before you do any editing at all. So the first thing I've done is I've taken three cameras of the same image here. So this kind of represents what you did with your lecture. You have three cameras, having different angles. I'm going on the assumption that all of them have audio associated with it, because that's how Final Cut's going to determine, how these line up will be based on the audio. So that's important. Okay, so here's what I do. First thing I do is I grab all the clips that I want to be in the multicam. This is three cameras. You can do it by just drawing a box around them. You can click the first and shift click the last. You can command click each one individually. Basically get them all selected that you want to be in there. If you right click the mouse, you'll see this new little list come up. One of the options is multicam edits, new multicam clip. You want to select that. It then brings up this dialog where you can name it. This is just naming the clip. This is not your edit. This is just a new clip which contains all the three cameras. This stuff isn't very interesting. The only things you really need to think about is this box that says use audio for synchronization. You want that definitely checked. That way it will look through the audio and line up all three clips based on what it finds in the audio. The other thing is if you wanted to set the common clip properties to how it was recorded. In this case, I recorded at 4K at 25 frames a second. I'm not interested in that, so I'm going to select custom, and I'm going to edit at 720p because that's how I want to output. I can do it at 1080. I can do custom type anything I want, but 720p at 25 frames a second is perfect for this. So I'm going to hit OK. It's going to go off and think about it. And it might only take a couple of seconds, might take 5 or 10 minutes, but as soon as it thinks about it, you can then go into your Final Cut document. You can now open that multicam clip, and when you do that, you're going to see all three cameras in a timeline under each other. This also is not where you edit. This is just where those clips are lined up. So the next step is to make sure it did a good job of lining it up. And the easiest way to tell, here on each clip you see a little video icon and a little audio icon next to it. So here's the video icon, so I can select which camera I want to look at to check it out. And next to it, I'm going to turn on the audio for all three clips at once. So now it's playing the audio for all of the clips at the same time. So if I now play, it will now play all three on top of each other, and I can determine whether they're in sync or not. So sometimes Final Cut doesn't make the right decision. So let's play this one. Let's turn on the one under it as well. And I can hear that it's not actually in sync, so I now want to go in and fix that. There are many ways I can fix it. I can zoom in and kind of look at the audio track and see where it may have gone wrong, and say, okay, actually this one is supposed to be right back here. I can see on the timeline here, so this might be closer. There we go. So now, see here, if I bring this one up and down, you see that's now in sync. And then I can turn off the top one, turn on the bottom one, see if these are in sync. And say they aren't in sync either. So Final Cut doesn't always make the right decisions. It usually does. In my case, even though these are all the same, they weren't all taken at the same time. They're the three takes to a pre-recorded track using the same camera. So I'm not surprised it didn't do an exact job. There we go. That sounds better. And so on yours, I'd expected to get it right the first time simply because yours were all recorded at the same time, so the audio is exactly the same. So all we're doing here is making sure we're happy that all three clips are in the right place. So now I'm happy that they are. So now what I'm going to do is go up and create a new project. A project is just a timeline. I'm going to call it drum thing, and I'm going to make sure it has the same properties as I selected before. So 720p, 25 frames a second. That all looks good. I'm going to hit OK. And now here is my empty clip. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that multicam clip that we just created. I'm going to drag it in, and it's going to come in as a single file. We no longer see it as three cameras. We see it as one camera. So that's good. That's what we want to see. Also, it doesn't know where the end is, so this goes on for a long time. So I'm just going to trim it. I'm going to hit the B key to turn this into a razor. I'm going to cut it at the end, hit the A key, and I'm going to delete everything that's after the clip. Nice little Final Cut trick is if you want to expand the timeline to be as long as its duration, hold down Shift and hit the Z key. So that now zooms it out to as big as it can be without being too big for the timeline. So now we can see our thing here, and you play and say, well, that's not multicam, that's just one clip. What went wrong? Nothing went wrong. We just haven't brought up the multicam editing yet. So to bring up the multicam editor, I hold down the Command key, the Shift key, and I hit 7. So that's Command Shift 7. You see it brought up this new window. And you can have this on an entire other screen and fill up the whole screen if you want. I have it on one screen just to show it to you easily. I usually have it on two screens. And here we now have the three videos, and there they are playing together. And anywhere I go in the timeline and play, we can see all three videos playing. And now we're ready to do our edit. So a couple of things for housekeeping in here. One is you see this settings button here. If you have, this is where you can say how many clips you're working with. If you have 16 cameras, you can have, leave enough room for all of them. But since we only have 3, I'm going to select 4 because that's the closest. And we have 1, 2, 3, and then room for another. So that's now ready to go. Another thing I want to show you is this guy here is very important. This determines when you make the cuts, whether it's cutting both audio and video together, just video, or just audio. Since the audio you want to be constant, and you probably know one of the cameras sounds better than the other, you just want it to be that camera. So we just want, when we cut, we just want to cut the video. We don't want it to cut to the audio of this second camera. We want it to always be the same. So this says we're doing video only, or audio only, or both. So we want video only. Next thing down here in the clip itself, if you right click, you'll see these guys here say active video angle, active audio angle. Audio angle is the one I'm interested in. Go through and play each one, a little bit of that one. I'll play a little bit of the second one. I'll play a little bit of the third one. Now to me, the best sounding one was the second one, so I'm going to select that as the only audio we listen to. The next thing I'm going to do is when we start cutting this, even though it's not changing the audio, it's going to put a cut in both the audio and the video. We don't really want to do that. We only want to be cutting the video. So I want to separate the audio from this clip. And the easiest way to do that is hold down the Control and the Shift key and hit the letter S. S as in Stephen. If I hit Control Shift S, you see what it did? It dropped the audio out. So now the audio is sitting here right under it, still in sync. Everything's fine, but it's no longer part of the video. So when I start cutting it, this will still be a pure, clean audio source. Not important. Nothing's going to get hurt or damaged if you don't do that, but I like to do that for housekeeping, and I'll show you why in a minute. So the next thing is you're ready to start editing, and you can literally just go back to the start and hit play. By hitting the space bar, it'll start playing it, and then as it plays, you can literally use the mouse to click on the video you want at that time. So we'll start playing, and I want to cut. I want camera 2, now camera 3, 2, and 1, and 3. So you see I'm literally clicking on the video I want at the time. And you may have noticed as I'm doing that, it's putting the cuts in the timeline. So now when I play it back, everything I just did, all the cuts are there, just as I did it. And you can even see here on the screen, you're seeing which cut it is at which time. So that's a very easy way to edit. Another way to edit is to, let's get rid of some of those. Another way to, oops, I went too far. Another way to edit is with the numeric keypad. So if you imagine this first one is number 1, second one is number 2, and this one's number 3. This time I'm just going to I'm going to hold my fingers on 1, 2, and 3. And now I want 2, and 3, and 1. I'm literally just hitting the numeric keypad. And you can see you can work very fast. The only challenge is knowing that 1 is the top. It's easy to kind of get lost, and sometimes it's easier just to use the mouse. So that's definitely the one I want. But same thing, I created the edits right in the timeline, and that's ready to go. From there, you can just use normal editing techniques. Like let's say we're looking at this cut, and I decided, well, that was too late. If I hit the T as in Thomas key, I can now do a trim. So by clicking between the cuts, and make sure that both sides, you see there's a little yellow bar, it's like close parentheses and open parentheses. Make sure the bar is going in both directions. If it's just one side, you're going to actually shorten everything, so you don't want to drag everything back. It's going to get out of sync if you do that. But by having it on both sides, you see now nothing else moves. You're just dragging where that cut point is. And I can make that a little earlier. And then this one I want a little later, so you can just fine tune it after. And then Shift-Z will again bring up the whole edit at once. And you can keep doing this until you're happy with your edit. And so that's the way you then edit. Now, if you want to go further and say, well, I want to condense time, like they introduced someone, but they didn't come up for 30 seconds, I want to get rid of that. There are a couple of ways you can do that. First thing you can do is you can find the spot in the audio and say, oh, okay, I'm just going to cut out that little bit of audio and move it here. So now, that introduction happens, and then the person starts right away. There are a lot of ways to edit, and again, you can go on for hours and hours on editing techniques, but that's not what I'm here to do. I'm just here to show you how to kind of get that under control. And that's about it. You keep doing that until you're finished. A few just good housekeeping things, like with the audio, especially just open mic audio or not particularly good audio. Good idea to put a compressor on the whole thing, just to make it sound a little more present and get rid of some of the highs and lows. You can do that by going under turn the effects icon on and go under audio to levels, and there's a real nice just compressor. You can drag that right over the audio track, and then up here in audio, you can go in and, and Bill can tell you a lot more about this, but, what I like to do is I like to turn on the limiter, bring down the threshold a bit, and that just will make everything sound just a bit stronger than it otherwise would, and it'll keep it from peaking and things like that, and then you can, play with the gain to get the levels right, and you want the levels to come almost to 0, but never quite get there, so you can just play with that until that works. Oops, I didn't have the compressor on when I was doing that. There we go. So you can kind of bring that up, and that's about it. And then when you're ready to master, that's great. Also, when you finish your first edit, it's good to kind of turn this window back off by hitting the same thing, Command-Shift-7, because while you're editing, it's playing all three of those cameras on top of each other, and it's not very easy for it to do. So that's a good thing to have. And that's it. And then when you're ready to master, you can just go up to Share, and you can say Master File. And just go out as H.264 and let it do its thing, or you can go directly to YouTube if you want, or Vimeo, whatever you want to do, but make that master file, and that's it. So good luck. I'm sure this will bring up more questions than it offered solutions, but that's all part of the game, so let me know what you think. Okay, that's me done. Bye.